Well, welcome. Nice to see you all here today. This is a great panel, and we're going to cover today really one of the biggest challenges in the creative industries is how to go from mid-level management to upper management, and what we can do to give advice and help build more senior leaders. So that's what we're going to talk about today. That's what's happening today. So Jimmy, maybe we start with you. Now that you're in the corner office, maybe open floor plan, depending on how your office is set up. What's kind of catching your attention in the marketplace as it relates to any trends or skill sets that are helping people kind of rise to the top and go above the fray?
I'd say the skill set is I just started watching Mad Men. I just started, and they had the cats in the art room, art department. And that dude ended up moving and becoming a director. I don't know anybody who watched that. And then and it was amazing how everything was divided. Yeah. And it reminded me of where we are now with digital, where, writers only do TV and so on and so forth, art directors TV, print, whatever, online banners and whatever. And then you had the digital cats that are out here. And now it's coming like that. It's not coming like that. It is like that. So if you can do, it's just like, I don't know if you guys probably don't know. You're too young. Back in the day, a writer would write the ad, slip it under the door to the art director, and the art director would do his thing. And then if you wrote radio, when TV came into the mix, you didn't write TV. That was for the TV guys. So that's what I'm saying when things are like this. So the more that you can do, which you should be able to do as a creative, whatever your discipline is, you should be able to do it across the board.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think those digital employees that you're describing are moving faster to the top, or do you think
they were in the beginning? I think it's kind of slowing down now, where, not slowing down in a bad way, it's just realizing that creativity is creativity is creativity. So you can write a script, you can, my son does apps. He started off as a art director, designer, director. Now he designs and, builds apps. So you can do what you can do if you're creative. Yeah. And you guys have that ability to go online, figure some shit out, and make it happen. So,
Susan, I wanted to ask you a question. When you were going up the ranks in your career, what did you see coming your way, or what did you look out for, or what did you notice to kind of give yourself a better navigator to get into senior leadership?
Well, it's interesting. I was talking to some people the other day, and I said, my career was very interesting. No one ever came and said, would you like to be a creative director? Actually, I started off as the bathroom break girl for the receptionist. So nobody said, would you like to stop being that? I guess it was obvious. But I sort of navigated the agency. I decided that if I got on a secretarial desk that was full of art directors with no writer partners, that maybe that would give me a chance to write, which happened. And then as I became a writer and had a partner, we had a lot of work that we were being given by clients, and we couldn't do it all, so I would look for juniors that were really good around BBDO and ask them if they wanted to help out. And so I didn't wait for people to say, it's time for you to be this. I just started doing the job. And I remember one time a team came up and said, can we be in your group? And I'm like, I don't have a group. And they're like, yeah, you kind of do. And I was like, no, I've just been borrowing all these people. These are not group. So I think a lot of times we sit back and wait to be invited. And especially when you're, like I was one of the few women in the creative department at BBDO, you sort of wait to be invited to step up or come to the party. And I think you start doing the job that's in front of you. And for me, it just kept happening.
How about you, Bruce? What are you seeing in your world?
I'd actually follow up on Susan's experience. For mine, it was a little different. I spent most of my career at Fallon, which was back in the early days, super creative agency. And we had all these amazingly creative people that didn't want to manage, like Bob Barry was the president of the One Club for many years and has more one-show pencils than, I don't know. But just wanted to stay and do the work. And I think, our chief creative officer at the time recognized that you might want to do that, and he asked me to do it. And so I was lucky that I was asked to do that. And it was kind of in my DNA to do that.
Do you think more people are getting stuck in the middle because of how long it takes to get out, or do you think with kind of the lanes colliding, there's more opportunity to move up quicker?
Hit me with that again. Sorry, Doug.
Okay, no, that's fine.
You know what, I'll answer, and maybe you'll hear the answer. But I do think that the middle may be getting a little bit more longevity into leadership, only because there's so much to do, the scope of work, and I think it takes a lot more people to fill all the holes out there across the media landscape. But on the other hand, we're actually promoting a lot more people earlier.
Yeah.
Because I do think that young people are coming into the business with a lot of capabilities, especially as makers. Just because you grew up with technology and tools and making, just as a way of having a conversation. So I almost feel like I'm seeing younger people taking more leadership roles sooner.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's easier to move quicker now. I mean, agencies are a lot leaner. They used to be so structured, and now it's half the number of people, and that provides more opportunity. And then there's new technology, there's new ways of expressing yourself, so you can raise your profile I think, quicker. Than
In my
the old
career,
structured way.
my first agency, I was there a long time, and I said, I feel like I'm in a high school where the seniors never graduate.
Yeah.
I think they graduate a lot faster these days.
I was in the Bob Berry camp and just wanted to don't have as many one-show pencils as Bob. Bob could build a house, a mansion with those pencils. But I remember I was bitching and complaining to, I don't know if anybody here knows John Kamen, but he's the founder of Radical Media. And I was talking to John, I was complaining. I said, man, I should be a CD, I should be a CD. And he said, well, Jimmy, how much are you making? And I told him, he said, well, the CDs make that amount, so you get to focus on the work, and you have to deal with all the bull crap. And I said, that's a good point. That's a good point. So that's one thing to think, what kind of work are you creating? Is there, what's this drive to wanting to be the CD? If you're doing the work that you want to do, if you're getting paid what you want to get paid, chill. Yes, sure, you want to move up, everybody wants to move up, but don't understand what's that drive. Is because your friends are getting blown up and now they're a CD, now they don't really get to do any other work, they get to only deal with the crap, but here you are sitting up there doing work that gets into the one club, into the one show. That's kind of cool, and John helped me realize that.
Yeah, that's important. Now, how did starting your own business come into play? So a lot more people now are pushing their side hustles. Everybody got a side hustle. Everybody's an Finstagram celebrity. You know what's going on out here. So is that helping move people to senior leadership because their bosses and their creative leaders are seeing what they're doing, or is that looked at as not being focused? How would you answer that?
So you're asking why did I start it?
Yeah, I'm saying, what was the driving point where you started your own business, where you realized you had to do it? And then looking at your staff and employees and people in the industry starting so many side hustles, is that, do you find that as a drive that is very beneficial to you, or do you think that it's not showing focus?
It's definitely beneficial. It's what happened was, who knows Space Jam? I've told this, some of y'all have been here before, already know the story. So just in a quick nutshell, I was at a small agency called Muscadero Chin. And I went in and I was the resident black guy for Wyden and Kennedy from LA, while Nike and Wyden were in Portland, Oregon, which was pretty much literally white.
Yep.
So Scott Bedberry would show me the work that Wyden was doing. And what do you think? Basically what he was saying, but being respectful. Do you think the boys in the hood would like that? So I got to speak for all of Black America. It was cool.
I do.
It was Hair Jordan.
Yeah.
And I said, nah, boys in the hood ain't gonna dig that. That's stupid. Don't do Hair Jordan. But thank God they didn't listen to me. They did it. Obviously, it blew up. And Warner Brothers was begging Nike to turn it into a feature film. And at the time, Nike couldn't see, they wouldn't do that, make that mistake now, but they couldn't see the need to do that. And it ended up, Space Jam is basically a 90-minute commercial. and they made $283 million at the box office, 3.5 billion in merchandise, T-shirts, hats, and all that kind of stuff. So as a young writer, and then I'm in Wieden and Kennedy, and I meet Jim Riswold, the co-creator of that, and I said, Jim, how much money do you make? He said, I didn't make shit. And I'm like, oh, come on, man, you surely, you know, it's, I Believe I Can Fly is #1, the movie's #1, you made something. I didn't make shit. And come to find out he didn't. They paid him $10,000 to rewrite a page because Joe Pitka, who directed it, felt sorry for him. From that point on, I was like, oh, no. That's got to change. You got to have, so I started an amusement park so we could own the content that we create, co-own it with the client.
That's important. That's a round of applause right there. That's so important, ownership aspect. Susan, how about you with the side hustles? Do you see those a lot in your agency, or?
Look, I think side hustles make you more interesting, and I have a feeling that either you'll go on to start something great, which is wonderful, or either you'll take that side hustle and apply it to the businesses that we're trying to take care of. So, you know, and I mean, we're adults. I trust that you understand what your job is to deliver for the agency, and anything that makes you more interesting and shows that you're progressing and learning, I'm all for it.
Bruce, how has the D&I conversation kind of entered into your purview on a regular basis in regards to conversations, in regards to staffing, in regards to creative executions? How's the D&I conversation kind of rolled into your everyday?
Well, I spent my whole career on the agency side, and just 2 years ago, I went on the corporate side, and Best Buy invited me to come in and build basically an agency and do all the brand work inside. So, huge shift, and it's a really different culture, corporate in so many ways, but there, D&I is just in the DNA. I mean, the company is, it's everywhere. I mean, we talk about it constantly, and it's like, you're expected to pay attention to that. I mean, everybody is, and that's a good thing. So, you know, it felt like, and it's been a while since I was in a traditional agency, but it felt like it was kind of a side conversation, oh, that'd be nice to do, to it being front and center. And that's just the way that we live and breathe there.
Susan, what do you see as the difference between a leader, someone who's really putting their best effort forward through authenticity, and some of these other individuals that may not really be holding their own weight in the leadership role?
Ooh, wow, that's a hard one.
Yeah, so just to, you know, we're getting into it now, guys.
Yeah.
We have to go viral, so
Well, you know, it's interesting. Years ago, the one club asked me they said, can you think about why so many creative people that are very successful in the first part of their career struggle in the second part of their career as creative directors? And I think, as Jimmy said, sometimes it's just that it's not what you want to do. You know, for some reason in our industry, and it wasn't like this when I first got into it, we've decided that the only way that you can move up is to become a manager. And some of the best creatives I know have no business managing. You know, they just don't. But they have every business to be paid very well to be creative makers. But I think the difference is that when you're in the first part of your career, you are in sort of what I would say a culture of scarcity. It's always about, you know, this is the last chance I'm going to get. This is the last great client. This is the last great brief, last great partner, et cetera. And I think when you live in a culture of scarcity, your mode of operation is survival. And so you operate on taking care of yourself first and others second. And if you continue to be that way as a leader, I think you fail, versus if you make a shift when you're a leader and realize that you're now in a culture of abundance, you have tons of talent, tons of opportunity, tons of clients. If you're in a culture of abundance, what would your behavior be? And I think your behavior when you have a lot is to be generous. And so leaders that are generous to others, I think, are the ones that are succeeding. And I think the leaders that continue to want to be in the spotlight, which is, sorry, I'm on this panel today, it should have been somebody else, but the more that you can give the light to others, the more that you can give them the opportunity, the more you give away as a leader, I think the better leader you become. And I think that's the difference in the leaders that I see that are failing are the ones that still feel that they need to be it has to be about me and what I did. And did I get the byline? Did I get the photo in the magazine? Am I one of the 40 over 40 or 50 or 100? Whatever age we're giving awards to today. I'm over all of them. But I think that's the big difference is keeping versus giving.
Yeah, I'd totally agree with that. You have to be more generous as you go up. You have to, not just with your creative teams, but with the entire agency or company that you work with. You've got to give more away. And some people struggle with that because, again, it's kind of a dog-eat-dog world when you're a junior and you can be selfish about it. And now all of a sudden you've got to collaborate, you've got to give more credit, and to succeed and to be good at it, you have to do that.
As a leader, Bruce, when you take over in a leadership role at Best Buy, for example, how much of it was bringing in your own team versus having to assume an existing team of leaders to work with? How much flexibility did you have to create your own team as a leader?
I had both. So there were some amazing people there already doing the social work and design work, and some people had come from the advertising side. What I brought in was the brand work, that we were going to do that. So I was able to bring in teams all from the agency side who had done big brand campaigns. So I had a mixture of them, but I came in and realized, wow, all these people here, there was a lot of talent there that they were kind of in-house and not considered, real talent. And some of them might have been writing, really simple social copy or .com copy, and I've been able to recognize some talent and bring them into doing really big brand work, which is satisfying.
How about you, Jimmy? What do you look for in a good leader?
What Susan said. Seriously, I didn't work with you, but by reputation, I knew bad boy. He's off the skillet. But Susan I worked with when I was at Susan I worked with at BBDO. Yeah. Everything that she just said, not to get out of the question, but everything that she said is how she operated. Always been generous, always giving, always wanting to share and open and whatnot. And I know that can be a scary thing when you get into some of these competitive places to do that type of thing. But what she always did is started with the work and everything grew out. So I would say that to anybody. The work comes first. I know that's a Wyden and Kennedy saying, but it's the truth. So they can do whatever they want to, say what they want to, stab you in the back as many times as they want to. But if you put up that reel, if you put up that portfolio, whatever the deal is, if that's dope, eventually you'll be good. You'll be golden.
Now, one thing that comes up is actually office politics in addition to the work. So a lot of times if you're outnumbered or you're underrepresented in a certain group or room, how do you better play the office politics to your advantage versus kind of getting voted off the island as it relates to promotions in your career? So maybe Jimmy, if you wanted to just talk a little bit about how you navigated office politics or what people should look out for, because it's sometimes a treacherous waters when you're going from the middle to the top, even if you have a killer book.
Be brave and be confident in what you're about and what the God-given talents that God has given you. So an example of that was I was at Wyden, and I had been working on a lot of basketball work. I'm the black dude, so I'm going to work on basketball at Wyden. But I ain't complaining.
I got to work on
I am good. I am good. That's the gig. That was my, I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. That was my dream gig. Work on Nike basketball at Wyden and Kennedy. Can't take nothing from that. So, I wanted to play in the NBA. It didn't happen, so I got to do it a different way. Yeah. So my review came, and it came up that I only worked on basketball. And you need to, expand your capabilities. All right. So next review, next year comes up, same thing. This is about 3 times in a row. Finally, I was sick of it because it said, Jimmy, you only work on basketball. I said, well, what about the Marion Jones? What about the King Griffey? Whatever. And they didn't recognize it. All they remembered was the basketball. So I said, okay, well, I tell you what. Don't give me any more basketball assignments. I'm a writer. I'm not the creative director. I'm not giving myself the assignments. Don't give me any more basketball assignments. So, okay, good idea. A month later, a basketball assignment came that wasn't cracked. And they said, Jimmy, can you work on basketball? I said, no, dog. That comes up in every review, so there's no point in me, digging that up. No, but we got an agreement. No more basketball. Jimmy, come on. I said, as long as I don't have to hear that shit ever again, I'll work on it. Cool. And I never heard about it again. So that was,
That's how you handle
Yeah.
it. Yeah. No, that's the best way to be brave. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Go to work and say you're not going to work on the only brief you have. That's good. I'm telling you guys, don't open with that. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that my advice would be don't try to assimilate. I did that the first part of my career where I just tried to be like everybody else in the room. And that's the exact opposite of what I think diversity is about. And, it's so interesting. I just got back from our Global Creative Council meeting where we have between 15 and 20 people from around the world come together and talk about ideas. And it's my most favorite meeting because of the diversity. It's so interesting to hear everybody comment on the work, and we all together make the work much better because everybody sees something slightly different. And when we contribute to the idea, it just gets better. And I think that's how we've upped our game a little bit at FCB because we are trying to create cultures of diversity that we listen to.
Yes.
Versus not. And then the other thing that I would say is, I used to ask people above me that were kind of the majority, like the guys, I would say, can we go to lunch and just chat? Because I think sometimes I was just invisible. I just wasn't one of the guys, and so I was just kind of looked over, maybe because I'm 5'3" and everybody else is taller. But, when someone sees you as a human being, a person, and you have a conversation, I think you become more memorable and they think about you more. So it's in your power, to form some relationships with the leaders, or the people that you report into. And I was way too shy early on, and I didn't do a lot of that, and I wish I had, because people want to know each other, I think.
One thing we're hearing more is that introverts actually feel like, in advertising environments that their voices are heard. I mean, because just their natural, introverted personality. So
Right.
we're trying to get people to have a more open opportunity to speak equally, even if that's not normally.
Well, I'm giving a talk in a week and a half called I'm Shy, and we'll see how that goes. It's ironic.
Are you just texting it out to everybody?
Yeah.
No, I'm just
I got to figure out how to do I'm Shy.
Hey, Bruce, how about you? What's the difference of the politics from the agency side and moving up the ladder to the publicly traded corporation side?
Actually, I've found it's more complex on the corporate side, but probably less political than it was kind of on the agency side. But getting back to what you were talking, I mean, to deal with politics, you have to be able to win your arguments. And I think the way to win your arguments is to be a better listener sometimes. Then you can structure how you're going to fight for your work, how you're going to fight for yourself. Understand what the client wants so that you can create work that they're really going to be receptive to. It still can come from way out in left field, but you know what they're trying to do, and you got to listen to do that. And I think you got to listen to your other creative leaders. You got to listen to people, other people that you collaborate with in the agency. But if you listen, I think you can win more arguments.
That's good advice.
Adding to some of that, and what both of you are saying, as a black man in the business coming up, Joe Muse, when I was at Muse Cordero Chin, and Joe was black, and he kept saying, well, Dan brought you in, make sure you stay close to Dan. That wasn't hard because Dan is dope, so I like Dan. But over time, I saw how important that was dealing with politics. Listening is you should absolutely listen, there's no doubt about it. But you do have the knuckleheads, and no matter what you do, how you do it, nicely, whatever, you need that guy, that champion who has some juice and some power. And if it wasn't for me, if it wasn't for Tom Burrell, Alma Hawkins, Lewis Williams, Al Hawkins, Dan, Lee Cloud, obviously Joe, it would have been, I wouldn't be sitting on this stage, sitting up here hollering at y'all. Needed that protection, and that's something to keep in mind as you try and navigate, through politics.
Like your protective bubble of people that can help.
You need that.
Yeah, like the only thing that precedes you when you walk into a room is your reputation. So, if you don't have people out there putting in the good word for you, it does get tough.
Yeah.
Do you feel that that's part of the reason that there hasn't been a lot of movement with the numbers of black and brown executives, female leaders? There was a book that recently came out called Diversity, Inc., which came out 2 weeks ago, and it talked about in the last 3 years, over $1 billion has been spent on D&I programs across the 200 Fortune 500 companies that they analyzed, and that the numbers haven't really changed across the board. But just wondering, maybe from each of you, but what do you think is the challenge? Is it that people don't have enough mentors? Is it specific to every situation, so it's hard to make generalities? What do you kind of see from your lens that we're still having these conferences and still talking about this?
I don't know if we got enough time for that, but
Well, there is a happy hour at 5, everybody. Jimmy will be answering the rest of the question at 5.
I was watching, before I came here, I was watching Adrian, that's why I was late. It was like ESPN stuff going on in ESPN. Anyway, and they were talking about the year of the black quarterback. 2019, 21st century, and we're talking about the year of the black quarterback. And one of the questions is kind of like what you just asked. The host asked this black cat, do you think this conversation is over? And, he gave his answer. Man, we're so far behind, it's pathetic. And, why do we even have, it used to be called Here Are All the Black People. There was a dust up, we had to drop the W on here and make it, it used to be Where, sorry. It used to be Where Are All the Black People. Dust up happens, the guy dropped the damn W. It's fucking stupid. Black man can't even keep the W on Here Are All the Black People.
All right,
So,
I think I caused that.
I didn't say that,
No,
though.
but I
didn't say
did.
that.
Because they used to say, where are all the women or whatever. And I was so offended because I would be sitting in the audience as a creative director and they're like, where are all the women? And I'm like, well, I'm here and I've put 15 years in and it'd be really nice if you'd stop asking where and start just saying here. Instead, I would go to these women's conferences and they put all the cool young creative directors that were all male and have them do skits about where are all the women. And I was like, just put the women on stage. That will solve it. So that's, I'll take the W. I took your W, baby.
So she took the W.
I didn't want you to feel like I
wasn't
felt.
going to say that. I wasn't going to say that. Now,
But it was a funny bit.
So, and we discussed this. So me and Susan can do this all day long. So in a good way, in a good health way. But I never would have said, if she would have said, we shouldn't make it where all the black people, we should make it here. If Susan's saying that, I'm like, well, that's the white woman. And we're talking about where all the white women. It's like, shut the fuck up. Let's go with that. So by the same token, there's that we don't know what we want. But there's one thing I do want to say. Yes, there's definitely an issue with white Americans, still racist, still so on and so forth, that you just can't do anything with that. But I put more of the onus now, it is 2019, and there are, quote unquote, to use an analogy, more black quarterbacks. There are more blacks on the corporate American side, corporate America side. There are a couple more. There are at least enough black creative directors that can, at some of these big agencies, that can go, hey, do this, this, and that, and I'm going to hire this person and this person. When I went to, when I was at Wyden and became a creative director, there was a black art director that was, said, he's not ready yet, he's not ready yet, he's not ready. I said, fuck that, he's ready, and I put him on, right? When I got to Chiat, Lise gave me the keys for Gatorade, and I didn't have a bunch of white people working for me. I had white people working for me. I had black people working for me. I had Asians. I had Latinos. It looked like it was the most diverse group. And there seems to be this thing with black folk where if I bring this person on, what if he's not any good? Well, if he's not any good, fire him. You know, you do it just like every other thing. If they end up not working out, you can get them out. And so...
No, it's the myth of the false hire, because there's so many sure things that blow up, like the Hindenburg, but if it's someone who's underrepresented, then the perception is that
there's a
higher.
perception there.
A couple of things. One, I hope that the book, A Billion, whatever it is, Diversity Inc., I think that a lot of this stuff is like the tipping point, is that you're shoving, you're pushing against this thing, and that at some point, the right shove happens and it tips. And so I think we have to be careful about saying that all this money's been spent and nothing's really happened, because I feel change coming. I feel change in the midst, and I want to remain hopeful and optimistic.
But you're unique. Susan is unique. You guys can contact Susan. I'm putting a lot of pressure on her, but not really. Susan, if you're dope, Susan will hire you. There's no doubt. I've seen it happen. I've seen folks, hell, I sent you my son. And so if you're dope,
That's biblical.
Susan will make it happen. Everybody's not like you.
Yeah, I also think we're lazy, because when I think about when I have somebody to hire, I reach out to my friends that I know and go, do you have somebody? And you tend to have friends until you work on your own diverse group of people that look just like you, or, and then and so it's a lazy hire, there's not someone else that could do this job. I think it's a laziness. And so I think the more diversity leaders have in their friendships, the more opportunity for diverse hires happens. And then I think finally, I cannot stand hiring on portfolios. Just portfolios, because the portfolios look like the way you want to talk. And I'm thinking about, when you brought the whole music video thing to advertising, and people were like, well, I don't understand, it looks like a music video. It's like, yeah, that's what it's gonna be. And I think that if we really want to hire diverse talent, we shouldn't have a typical way that we think a portfolio should look to get into the business. And I'm not saying they aren't important, but I mean, I hired the first female chief creative officer in India based on films she had done outside of advertising. Her advertising was good, but it wasn't great. But I listened to the way she talked and the way she tweeted and the films she was doing and her ambition and her mind. And I was like, like you said, I'm taking a chance. Worst thing that happens, and I told her that, worst thing that happens is that you take the job, you do it for a while, and we decide it didn't work out. You still have done something significant for women in your country. Well, instead, she's one of the most celebrated creative leaders in India today. So take a chance.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, too, there can be people right under your nose that are doing another job completely, like you. What was the bathroom?
Yeah, just get the receptionist, their
Right,
bathroom
right.
breaks.
And finding people like that, and there have been so many cases where, like, how did that person get here? Well, they were doing this, and someone gave them a chance to just try something. Give them a shot.
And if you're not getting that shot, move on to a different company. Because
Yeah.
I did have a moment in time where I told someone that, my plan was I wanted to be a writer, and even though I was sitting at a secretary's desk, the creative that I was working for had said, you can come into meetings, you can listen, I'll give you the briefs, you can play, I'll talk to you.
Yeah.
And she left, and a new person came in, and I said, we had this agreement, I hope we can continue. And she came back the next day, and she goes, we won't be promoting any secretaries, because then all the secretaries will want to be promoted. Which at the time I was really, really upset and broken, but actually it was the good kick in the butt that I needed to go, you know what, I'm going to go figure out something else.
You got to find someone to let you do that.
That portfolio thing is huge too.
Yeah. What do you look at?
Coming from a different background than what somebody grew up in, obviously they aren't going to come with the same insights that you would. It's a whole different background. I remember, I think it was like 7th grade, I was writing this paper for this white English teacher. We all were, the entire class. And I said, in there somewhere it said, cut off the lights. She had this big red mark around, cut off the lights. And I said, what's wrong with cut off the lights? She said, it's put off the lights. And I said, we don't.
Not where we're from.
We don't, we say cut off the lights.
I say cut off.
Big whoop-de-doo, it's not wrong. And a lot of times you look at these portfolios and wanting it to have exactly from your background. And you're creative people. You're supposed to be a creative director. You're supposed to see something that somebody else doesn't see to be able to do your thing. So I sent this woman, a black woman, to an agency, sent it to a black cat over there. I said, dude, she's dope. You need to take a look at her. It doesn't have it in the, I don't see it in the. So I got to call up the white guy who founded the agency and tell her, take a look at this. He looks at it and goes, hey man, I think she's good. And ever since then, she's been killing. Again, back to my original thing, this whole thing about black folk not looking out, Latino folk, Asian folk, so on and so forth. And again, I'm not saying, if you looked at that creative team I had on Gatorade, it was not all black. It wasn't all white. It was, kind of looked like this room a little bit.
Diverse.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. We're going to open up for some Q&A, so there's going to be some mics somewhere. While we set up anyone for questions, there's one down here. I want to ask, if you're not looking at the portfolio, what are you looking at? So what is a good resume that's non-portfolio based to judge someone's creativity?
I mean, I think songwriters, music. Like I said, at Swati, I hired based on some of the films that she was making. Mm-hmm. She wrote this film about how the 7 deadly sins, your deadly sin, actually is a gift to others. It's whacked. It was really good. She's sloth.
But how am I going to use that for Ford or whatever?
Listen,
you had to see that.
I know, but the thing that's so interesting is I do think that 15, 20 years ago, when we were very tight about mass advertising to a general audience, and it was like you had to be able to write a 30-second spot that either was dialogue-driven or manifesto-driven. You had to be able to do a radio of a 7-word outdoor board, that you did need people to walk in and be able to do those things. But today, what we're being asked to do and the kind of creative we're being asked to do is so all over the place, and we're creating it again, that I think it is a new day for just people that are creative thinkers to come in and show the way. I remember my first creative directors, one had been a bartender and was hired because they used to go and drink at the bar after work, the agency people, and he was funnier than any of them. And they're like, you should be the writer, so they hired him. Another guy hired a taxi cab driver. He was in a taxi cab, and the taxi cab driver was so interesting. He said, call me tomorrow. I think you might make a good creative. But we're not letting any of those kinds of people in now because we've got this structured way of I wouldn't be in this business if portfolio schools had been around.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't afford $40,000 in 2 years of room. No way. I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Funniest guy I ever worked with was our IT guy. and he became the most absolute hilarious writer ever.
Yeah. We've got to stop thinking that there's this one way
but there's some
Where
magic.
are all the taxi cab drivers?
in Ubers.
So for the audience here? Oh, there's a mic behind you.
Thank you. Hello, I am Evanique Levinsky, and my question is geared towards something Mr. Smith said earlier on in the conversation of the importance of owning or co-owning the content you produce. I know that's more and more of the conversation now, especially with Black Twitter reportedly providing $23 million of free media money into Popeyes for their burger. I want to know, how would you advise emerging talent to own their own content or co-own if they don't have the means of production channels or distribution channels?
There's a two-part answer. One is, pretty simple. Everybody's familiar with it. So my sons were at Towson University playing basketball, and we'd send them, me and Mom, my wife, would send them money every month and whatnot. But they had benchmarks that they had to hit, grades, blah, 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 blah. And one of them, I can name him, Jarrell, the youngest, wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing. And so he had an amount taken away that month, next month, another amount taken, and I was like, to smoke, I was like, don't worry, he doesn't have any money. I know he's on scholarship, but still, you gotta, go out. Eventually, he didn't have diddly squat, And finally, he came home for like one of the holidays. Says, "Dude, what's going on?" Come to find out, he was making $4,000 a week on Twitter. He had blown up on Twitter, and I was like, "That's good entrepreneurial skills."
I'd take that.
Right? So there, you guys have something that we did not have when we were coming up. The variety of ways that you guys can make money, use your creativity. Don't sit up there and just wait on an agency to knock on their door. They should knock on their door, and you should be able to get in. But in the meantime, there are things like that you can do.
Yeah.
Is Yankee ingenuity. And amusement park can't survive no matter, even though we had a guy jump out of the plane with no parachute, no wingsuit, landed safely, and increase sales, so on and so forth. It's not enough. So Susan Edelman, sitting up in the front, didn't know she was going to be called upon, has invested in a product that we've created. It's going to be pretty huge, and we'll advertise what we have created. That product, we'll just do our own fucking advertising and get it crunk. So that's the two part. There's a variety of ways to get this done and make it happen for yourself. Obviously, you need to sprinkle a little God on it, but there you go.
Okay, cool.
How you doing? You mentioned before being more generous as you start to sort of rise up in the ranks. So when or how is the right time to stand up and sort of beat your chest and say, hey, all that is me. I'm the tie that binds all these great things that are happening, especially if people aren't direct reports to you?
You know, I had a moment when I realized that I was better because all the people that worked with me than I was working alone. And maybe it's also a very vulnerable feeling to know that I need other people to succeed. But when I started really officially having to lead people, I tried it's my party and you're all invited or whatever, and it lasted about a week, and I hated who I was, and I think most people wanted to quit. So I had to do a quick, wait, this isn't working for me. Because I was trying to do what my bosses had done to me, like fear, intimidation, and all of that, and it worked, but it just wasn't a great way to be. But I would tell you, I call it magic math. The more generous you are, the more you get. And I would say you don't have to wait to have a leadership title to start behaving that way in the world. I wish I had started sooner.
All right, we have to wrap the panel. I just want to ask one word of advice or quick advice for the room. Maybe the best piece of advice you ever got, or something you give advice to yourself 20 years ago, or something prophetic for the room to take with them, Bruce? I'm putting you on the spot here.
You know, I would say that if you want to be a leader, teach yourself to be a leader. Find a mentor, but then work on some things. Like work on articulating, how you feel about work, being able to present it, how to show yourself. You got to work at it. Make a deliberate decision to improve in some of these areas. The good thing is, most creative people, there's very little training for us, So you have this advantage of you can teach yourself some of these good habits. Look at what the great leaders do, but work at it. Make a deliberate decision.
Oh, I think I would say probably try to be as true to yourself as you can. Like, whoever goes home, bring them to work. That whoever you are when you go home, try to bring most of that to work. Because if you're showing up disingenuously or not authentically, I think it makes you very unhappy. But I also think, I remember the first time I met you, you sent me some note about a piece of work, and you said, it's off the skillet. And I was like, I don't know what that means. I mean, this is like 20 years ago. But I was like, but I like him. I like that he said skillet, and I don't know, I gotta go meet this guy. And I mean, Jimmy didn't show up as Jimmy, and I think that's one of the reasons you've been so successful as a leader, is you've not been afraid to say, to me, it's off the skillet. I can't remember the other word you said, but I was like, I think it's good.
I'll give you more than one. Okay. A bonus. All right, producers, I'm going to give more than one answer. One is you have to be a little brain damaged. You have to be a little crazy, meaning you can't take, somebody tells you no, you're going to hear way more no's than you're going to hear yes. You're going to hear a bunch of no's before you get into business. Once you get into the business, you're going to hear a bunch of no's. You can't have that break you down. God made you. You're dope. Just stay on that train. The other thing is kind of related to your question. It's not but portfolio. You had mentioned the portfolio and about how people look at portfolio. Portfolio is not the only way to get in. This one person, when I was at Chiat, started a Twitter account called Lee Clow's Beard.
Yeah, that's
And he just, the person, it was a guy, he just wrote like he was Lee Clow, given like he was Yoda, right? And he got offered a job because what he had written, started up on Twitter, was so creative.
We published his book.
Yes, yeah, you were there.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah.
I saw Lee Cloud's Beard Finstagram account.
That's, you know,
a great point.
There's just so many ways. If you are creative, show it. A book is not the only, go to my website, and that's not the only way to show how creative you are. And the smart people, which is who you want to work for, somebody smart, will recognize that talent. Somewhere along the way, somebody's, that taxi driver is pretty, that IT guy is funny. They will recognize that.
It's funny, in New Zealand, just one quick story. In New Zealand a couple of months ago, we had to let go of a few creatives that were good, but it just, it was just that moment. And in New Zealand, you can bring a support friend when you're getting let go to be with you, and he brought a clown. First of all, we were like, man, did we have to let him go? But he got hired immediately. But, I think DDB hired him. Go Ari. That was even creative. Like, show up creatively, and people will notice, and you will have job security and success.
Yeah,
Yes, it did.
My piece of advice would be spend twice as much time with the people that believe in you and half as much time trying to switch over the haters, because we're spending too much time on the nose. With that, thank you all so much. Add us all on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. Thank you so much for your hour today. I appreciate all your time, and we'll see you soon.